Hi, I'm Joe Hippensteel, CEO and head coach of Ultimate Human Performance, Inc. I want to take a few minutes to explain who we are and what we do. We, my small team and I, teach the most advanced training methods for ultimate performance and pain and injury elimination anywhere in the world. Most coaches and trainers and therapists teach a lot of advanced strength, core, and dynamic movements that they believe to be the most functionally efficient methods possible. My philosophy is quite different and extremely effective. My methods are based on the 4 pillars of fitness, those being strength, conditioning, cardio, and flexibility. It's easy to get stronger, more conditioned, and increase your cardio fitness, but the real bottom line foundation for all performance and pain and injury elimination is flexibility to a standard. The academic, athletic, and medical worlds are still confused about the science of flexibility. There have been thousands of studies on the subject, and the results are still up in the air on how long and the methodology of stretching. There is no consensus. Virtually all of these studies reflect only one variable of stretching, and that is duration of stretch. Some of them believe, but not statistically proven, that a stretch should last for less than 30 to 45 seconds. More than that, it is believed deactivates the muscle fibers and reduces the ability to produce maximum contraction. This is simply not true. Over the past 25 years of intense training, approximately 30,000 hours in the hardest sport there is to train for, the decathlon, I had over 100 injuries. Many of them were pulled or strained muscles, but some were severe enough that they were supposed to require surgery or injections to correct. But I opted to continue my search for a better way. I wanted to figure out how to make the body train more efficiently so as to eliminate the pain and injuries. I have had degenerative, bulging, herniated discs, torn ligaments and meniscus, frayed tendons and torn muscles, pulled muscles, strains, sprains, spasms, tendinitis, bursitis, arthritis, and much more. I tried every type of therapy available many times over, medical and alternative methodologies. I did not get very much relief or satisfactory results, so I continued my experiment with my training methods. I tried many different types of strength and flexibility training. I rested and I overtrained. I listened to doctors and chiropractors, coaches, trainers, therapists, acupuncturists, massage therapy, did ice, contrast, many therapy tools and gadgets, and just could not eliminate the tendencies of pain and injury from constant, intense training for 10 hours per day or 65 hours per week. And then over a period of many years, I found the answers I had searched so hard for. I found flexibility to a standard. I developed the first and only standard for flexibility that reaches a neutral point for each of the part of the body. I created specific standards for ranges of motion that bring the body back to neutral as the human body was designed to move to and through like all kids can do. I discovered that virtually all pain and discomfort in the musculoskeletal system comes from tightness in the muscles and joints. This tightness in turn then produces chronic pain and injury and therefore creates limiting factors in athletic performance. Did you know that most athletes retire because of pain and injury? Most people reduce their activities as they age because of pain and injury. Doctors call that aging, and dozens of other labels like arthritis, bursitis, tendinitis, degeneration, bulging discs, migraines, tennis elbow, torn rotator cuff, etc. I call it tightness or lack of proper range of motion. As I discovered the secret standards of these magic 24 ranges of motion, I was able to train harder and longer and keep training at an intense level for many more years, pain and injury free. I was able to coach many world-class and professional athletes and help them improve even after they retired from athletics because of their pain and injury. And now I would like you to meet my partner of 20 years, Mimi Ney.
These methodologies became a miraculous formula for increasing performance. This is what we now teach to Navy SEALs and professionals in baseball, football, and many other athletes in all sports. We teach it to private clients that have had acute or chronic pain that have not found relief in other therapies. We have been able to help hundreds of clients and athletes avoid surgeries or injections. They too have found the miracle of the UHP 24 ranges of motion that have changed their lives. We encourage you to read the testimonials on our website. We truly wish the best for you on your search for the miraculous cure that will eliminate your pain and injuries and help you reach ultimate human performance. It really is the fountain of youth. Please let us know if we can help you in any way. Thank you for visiting. Stay loose and have an awesome day.
So now we're going to introduce to you today the basic building blocks of our 24 ranges of motion, which we call the UHP ROM 24. So Mimi, if you'd come in, and we're going to do some demo today. I'd like you to sit on the massage table. we're going to start off with the lower body. We're going to teach you 4 different basic ranges of motion that are going to allow you to start the process to build the foundation of full flexibility. For the lower body, we have 15 lower body exercises or positions. We're going to start with the main 4 that starts to allow the hips, low back, knees to start opening up. Then we're going to build into a progressive chart ultimately with the next video. So for this one, the first one we call is sit, cross, lean. This is the first level of lumbar flexion. If you would turn this way and face to the right. So the sit, cross, lean is, we try and describe our positions for exactly what they are. There's no fancy names like in some of the other methodologies. When we start by sitting, we cross our legs and we lean forward. So if you would demo that, the goal of this one is to put your head on the ground. Most people are not going to be able to do that at the beginning. Come on back up. Most people are going to be knees up a little bit. They're going to be trying to lean forward. They're going to be stiff in the low back, stiff in the hips, stiff in the groin. What we're trying to do is achieve range of motion that will free up the tension, free up what we call muscle lock in the body. So when muscles go beyond tight, they actually start locking up. We're trying to free that up by achieving our ranges of motion. Now, go ahead and progress all the way down. Over days, weeks, or months, it may take you that long to get there, but it's what we call the building phase. You have to work your way through these basic ranges one by one with a routine of 4 for the lower body, 2 for the upper body, depending on what your issues are, to work your way to our standards. When you reach our standards, you can progress to the next level, okay? So normally when we do this, we're gonna hold for 2 full minutes. If she's up here and she's working her way down, we're gonna hold for 2 minutes, and then after each stretch, we're gonna do what we call the dead zone, which means that when she comes out of this position, if this is the furthest that she can go comfortably, after 2 full minutes, she's now allowed her muscles to start opening some little gaps in there. So when she comes out of this position for 2 minutes, I want you to lie back now, and you're going to see she's moving a little bit slowly. Some of the muscles are not quite open yet. And what we're trying to do is open those little gaps, and now we want to do what's called the dead zone. The dead zone is literally resting for 1 minute. When we rest for 1 minute, it's the second part of the stretch. The strength coaches and medical world, therapy worlds, don't really understand what the dead zone is. They think that you're inactivating the muscles when you do our ranges of motion or when you do stretching. So they're saying don't do any static stretching before you work out because it inactivates the muscle. That's not true. That's not what's happening. What's actually happening is, the science behind it is, when you're holding a position for 2 minutes, working your way down to our range of motion, you're actually opening little gaps in the muscles. When you come out of it, those little gaps fill in with blood. So what's actually happening is, if I take a little muscle fiber in a microscope and I blow it up 1,000 times so it's this wide, you have sections called sarcomeres that contract and release, contract and release. You have another sarcomere here, another one here, another one here. You have hundreds of these contractile units that make a muscle expand or contract. When a muscle goes beyond tight from a lifestyle or from training, repetitive training, it actually locks up and there's no gaps anymore. You can't pull it apart because it's stuck. Why? Because it's protecting the joints, it's protecting the ranges of motion that you've trained it to do. In other words, if you're a distance runner and you do thousands and thousands of short motion, 10 miles a day, 5 miles a day, your muscles tend to grow what you train them to do. So if you train them to be short with short ranges of motion, that's where they're gonna function. They won't go more than that unless you train them to neutralize that tension that you're creating with those short ranges. So I want you to sit up again, go into your sit, cross, lean again. Each time that we do this, and normally we recommend at the beginning of a program, we'll do 3 repetitions, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off. 2 minutes on, 1 minute off. We do 3 repetitions, and each time you do it, you should be able to go a little bit further, a little bit further, a little bit further. Eventually, maybe the first day, maybe the first week, maybe the first month, you're going to get your head to the ground. When you do, your entire body looks like a curvature, like a turtle, taking out the arch in your low back, opening up the hips, opening up the groin muscles. That's what we want to achieve. So this is the first standard that we try and achieve in our basic building blocks ranges of motion. Okay? Thank you. Would you sit up for me? I want you to turn and face the front. The second range of motion that we do, and this, again, this is for low back and for lower body. So every one we do involves the low back, knees, legs. The second range of motion that we do in our basic building blocks is called the sit, cross, lean to the side. So if you would lean to the side for me. Now, do it as if you're tight and you can't get there. Her knee's going to be up in the air because her groin's too tight. Hip flexors are too tight. She can't reach all the way down. Her low back's too tight. Her hip is too tight. Now, eventually, if we hold for 2 minutes, she's going to start progressing a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, rep after rep, day after day, week after week. The goal here is to get all the way to your elbow, knee down flat on your other foot, head hanging down at least a 20-degree angle. If you can do that, the neck muscles are opened up, the low back is opened up, the hips are opened up, and the groins open up. When you can reach this range of motion, you've reached our standard. When you reach our standards, you don't have to do multiple repetitions every day. You get to, we're in what's called the building phase now, working our way to the maintenance phase. The building phase means multiple repetitions, day after day, sometimes twice a day for people who want to get there faster. It may involve an hour of stretching a day. It may be 2 hours. It depends on what your goals are and what you want to do to release, and if you're willing to give up some of your other weightlifting workouts, running workouts, in order for you to gain and improve to get to these ranges. When you do, all the muscles are open, then you can work out and you'll actually become stronger through stretching. Now, if you'd come up for me. Now I want you to lean to the other side. So normally after each repetition of 2 minutes, we're going to lie down and experience what we call the dead zone. You're going to just relax. So now she's leaning to the left side. She's opening up the right side of her low back. She's opening up her obliques. We're opening up the hips, opening up the groin and the hip flexors. So you can see her head is hanging down at a downhill angle. Most of her entire right side now is opened up. Now, if some people go all the way down to their elbow and they're not flexible enough, they may end up looking like this. That's not what we want to achieve. We want to get this leg all the way down. We want to achieve full range on the right side of our body, holding for 2 minutes, resting for 1 minute, dead zone. Holding for 2 minutes, resting for 1 minute. We're going to do 3 repetitions to start. If people want to get there faster, they can do it twice a day. If they want to get there even faster, they can do 5 reps. They can do 6 reps, which involves time. But you have to make a decision in your life. If you're tired of the pain, if you're tired of the injury, all coming from tension, if you can't do these ranges, you have a dysfunction. If you have a dysfunction, you have pain and injury. So deficiency in our ranges is dysfunction, is pain and injury. Okay, come on back up. That's the second range of motion for the lower body. The third range of motion, if you lie on your back for me. So the first one was lumbar flexion, the first level. In physical therapy, they only have one level where they do a sit and reach test to see if you can touch your toes. Whether it's standing or sitting, it's a reach test. It involves the hamstrings and the glutes and the low back. I want to break that down into steps so it's easier. Some people are never going to be able to touch their toes, so we want to break it down, start doing the hips and the low back first with the sit, cross, lean. Then we want to get some lateral flexion or lateral stretch by doing the sit, cross, lean to the side, the one she just did. Now we want to get some rotation in the lumbar and the hips to start opening up piriformis muscles, gluteus muscles, quadratus lumborum, obliques. So if you'd move towards me just a little bit more, I want you to bring your right knee up to 90 degrees, pull it across your body with your left hand all the way to the mat. This hand will be out at 90 degrees, should be level with the ground, knee should touch the ground. Now, some people are going to be literally a foot off the ground and they're not going down. That means they don't have a full range. They may be feeling it in some of the hip flexors, in the hips in the back, the gluteus, piriformis, which goes across the back of your glutes, low back. So if we're working with them, we're going to go in and do some trigger point on those muscles to help her gradually descend, gradually work down, maybe in a day, a week, a month, whatever it takes, working your way through the building phase to get to the maintenance phase. We're going to do multiple repetitions here, 3 reps, maybe 4 reps, 5 reps, depends on how fast you want to achieve your goals. This is for the right leg. Some people will be able to get the right leg further than the left leg. That just means you have an imbalance somewhere. We will find every imbalance in your body by doing our ranges of motion. Again, this is the third one of the basic building blocks. This is where you start with range of motion before you progress to the rest of the lower body where there's 15 ranges and the upper body where there's 9 total ranges, including the neck. Okay, let's switch to the other side now. Now, normally when she comes out of this, we're going to take 1 minute. She's going to rest, but for the sake of time now, we're going to allow us to keep moving. So instead of taking a full minute, and you'll know what we're talking about. When we talk about the dead zone, you feel like you're coming out of a stretch, and this is what you feel like. It's like, it takes a while for your legs to unwind, it takes a while for your low back to unwind, or your hips. So when you feel that feeling, you have to relate that to knowing you made progress. When you feel that dead zone feeling like you can't come out of that position very fast, it's because you can't. Your muscles have now opened up some gaps. We're waiting for the blood to fill in. Right in these little gaps here, bringing in calcium, magnesium. It's kind of a metaphor of an explanation so you can understand it. So now her left leg's all the way to the ground. She's on the maintenance level. It may have taken her days or weeks to get there. And if you experience tightness and you can't reach our ranges, don't panic. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. We have clients that come to us all the time and say, well, I've been stretching for a month and my back still hurts. All I care about is not how long you've stretched, but what's your range of motion. If a range of motion is a foot off the ground, even though you've been stretching for a month, it means you're not there yet. Until you get there, you're going to hurt. When you get there, your muscles are full length, like when you were a kid again. You're not locked up. You're not stuck in a position that you've trained your body to be in from distance running or sitting or doing certain things in your lifestyle. Okay? That's the leg over position. We're actually achieving some rotation in the lumbar. So in review, sit, cross, lean, we get some lumbar flexion, glutes, hips, low back. Sit, cross, lean to the side, we're getting some lateral flexion, lateral stretch, all the way down through the obliques, quadratus lumborum in the low back, hip flexors, groin. In the rotation, in the leg, we call this one lie leg over. Why? Because we lie down and we put our leg over. So when we do this one, we're getting rotation in the lumbar vertebra, hand out to the side, knee across, we're getting the vertebra to open up. What we're doing here is we're eliminating tension and we're increasing space between the vertebra. So if someone has bulging disc, degenerative disc disease, et cetera, stenosis, sciatica, if you can achieve our ranges of motion, most of the time those aches and pains just go away. So what is it? Was it really ever a medical condition that required that label to be on you? Maybe not. Maybe it's just tension, and that's what we have found to be true. So as we work our way towards these ranges of motion, we have pain and problems and medical conditions just go away. Okay? The fourth and most difficult of the lower body ranges of motion is called the quad stretch. So I want you to go into your quad stretch position. And if you would for me, let's show them a position. And would you grab some pillows for me over there and bring them over? So what we want to show here is the quad stretch position is what opens up the hip flexors here, allowing your hips, instead of being in an anterior pelvic tilt position, to come back to take the arch out of the low back. When you have anterior pelvic tilt from sitting a lot, tight hip flexors, you end up arching your back just to stand up straight. We want to get rid of this tension with the quad stretch, pulling the hips back, taking the arch out of the low back. So, yeah, come on over. So now what I want to show you is if someone can't reach these ranges of motion, let's say that someone comes in and they're very tight, their ankles, it's too much pain for their ankles to go flat on the floor. So we're going to put a pad in there, we're going to put a shoe in there, a rolled up towel or rolled up mat, whatever it is that allow you to not go past a 7 in pain. When we stretch, rule number 1, never go past a 7 in pain. The reason for that is if you go to an 8, 9, or a 10, your brain is communicating with the muscles that you're trying to stretch. The brain says, what's going on with the muscle? And the muscle says, well, there's a lot of pain here. It's an 8 or a 9. The brain says, too much pain, something's wrong, shut down, contract, and defend. You'll never be able to stretch. When we say don't go past a 7, and we're working with Navy SEALs, we're working with professional athletes, they think, well, if a 7 is good, 8 or 9 must be better. It's not how it works. Go to a 7, it's a high discomfort level. You wait it out. That's why we go for 2 minutes on. After that, you come out of it, you experience the dead zone. It means you made progress. And we want you to lie down and relax. We want you to eliminate that tension, get some blood flowing there. Now, if someone can't put their ankles down on the ground because they're at an 8 in pain when they're sitting on them, we're going to put a pillow under the ankles. It may be a thick pillow, it may be a thin pillow. The key is whatever level you need to not go past a 7 in pain. Okay? Now, let's say that her knees are so tight that she can't even sit back. We're going to put a pillow in here, and if we have to, we're going to put 2 pillows in there. So for the tight football players that I work with who are 250 or 300 pounds and they have a knee surgery and they come to me, we've got to get range of motion again. Go ahead and sit back on those pillows. We've got to get range of motion again before they can do strength work. The physical therapy world wants to immediately get their knees strong, and we see people never getting the range of motion, constantly having problems, even developing cysts and ganglions, scar tissue problems in their knee because they haven't gotten the range of motion first. Now, she seems pretty comfortable there, so what we'll do then is if she progresses over the days or weeks or months, we're going to allow her to sit down on 1 pillow. If she can do that comfortably, we're going to have her start leaning back. So I want you to lean back to your hands. Once they achieve this level, if you're comfortable there, come forward. And again, this may take another week, it may take another month. We're going to eliminate some of the height there. We're going to allow her to sit back. We're going to allow her to lean back. What we're trying to do is get the hips to rock back instead of being stuck forward, arching the back. Arch your back for me. You see how the hips, how this tightness in the muscle creates forward pelvic tilt or anterior pelvic tilt. The therapists know what that means, but they freak out when they see us do this range of motion. They think it's extreme. This is exactly what you need to get rid of back problems. Most of the time, 90% of the time. So I want your hips to come back now further. Taking the arch out, go ahead and lie back down. When you can expand your muscle length to being able to lie flat on the ground, you will no longer have that anterior pelvic tilt arching your back. So what we want to achieve here is getting rid of back problems means that if you can lean forward on our first range of motion, called the first level lumbar flexion, the sit, cross, lean. Now we can do the opposite, which is the quad stretch, lying back all the way in the quad stretch. Now you've released all the pressure on your hips. Your hips rotate just fine. Not too much arch in your back and not too much cause of tilt and therefore creating an arch. When we can do both of these levels, 90% of all back problems are gone. Okay, come on up. Perfect. So those are the first 4 ranges of motion for the lower body. And we call it sit, cross, lean to the side, leg over, lie leg over, and lie back quad stretch. When you can achieve those, most of your back issues will go away and your hip issues. In order to progress from there, we then have different levels and progressions that we have to achieve in order for you to free up all of the parts of your body. Now, in this first video, we're teaching you the basic building blocks, 4 lower body, 2 upper body. So we're going to progress to the upper body now. These will take care of 80 or 90% of your problems. If you reach these ranges of motion, it's time to progress to the next video in the series where you can then learn the rest of the 24 ranges of motion that will allow you to finish opening all the rest of your problems. Now, some people will get 50 or 60% there because they're really tight. They need some supplemental levels, supplemental stretches in order to keep gaining progress. So let's go ahead and progress now to the upper body. So we're going to do our 2 main upper body stretches. If you stand up here for me, and I'm going to have you, let's face to the front first. So the first thing we want to do, we find the number 1 shoulder injury is not a labral tear, and it's not a rotator cuff tear. It's bicep tendonitis. Now, your medical professionals may know what that means. The question is, do they know what to do to get rid of it? Do they want to go in and do surgery because you have bicep tendonitis, or they think that the pain comes from the labrum or the torn rotator cuff, so they want to go in and literally cut the tendon and relocate it down on the bone, or do they want to give you injections, or they want to give you some drugs? They want to strengthen your arm. They want to do rotator cuff work. We say the number 1 thing we do, because the number 1 injury is bicep tendonitis. Go ahead and turn and face that way. I want you to put your hands behind you. When someone comes in with a shoulder issue, the first thing we do is we tell them, turn around, put your hands together, keep your arms straight. I'm going to lift to see where you can go. Most guys with shoulder issues will be somewhere in this range right here. They can't go further because their biceps are too short, and all the pain is right here in the front of their shoulder where the bicep tendon is attached to the shoulder. If we can't go past here, you have bicep tendonitis. If you can't go to 90 degrees, you have bicep tendonitis. If you can't go all the way up to 120, can you go there? She's not fully warmed up yet, but so it would take her 2 or 3 reps to get there. She's at about 100 degrees right now. If she can't get to 120, she has bicep tendonitis. Period. End of story every time. When you get to 120, you don't. All kids can do it, adults can't. Why? Because we do rows, we do chin-ups, we do curls, we're picking up things all the time. How many people ever stretch to that range of motion? We train ourselves to have short muscles. So the number 1, we call this one arms behind and up. Why? Because we put our arms together behind and we lift up. Okay? So I'm going to do one more time. We want the arms to be straight. Now we lift it to test them. Let's say that she only gets to 90. We know she still has some bicep tendonitis, but not terrible because she's 3/4 of the way to the range of motion. The people who are down here, we have some people who literally can't get their hands off their hips or can't even put their hands together. The bodybuilders, the big football players who have no range of motion, we can't lift their arms up. We could put our foot on their hips and pull them and push. We still can't get them to come up. So again, we can't go past a 7 in pain. When we do this one, and I'm going to have Mimi demonstrate it for you, if you would maybe kneel down on the ground and put your hands on the chair, this is how you do it by yourself without us being there. You can do it sitting in front of a couch. You can do it on a chair. See how she leans forward and then she sits up. We don't want to put our arms on the chair and lower ourselves down with our arms because we're using the same muscles we're trying to stretch. She'll get down on the floor, put her arms behind. For now, she's at 90 degrees, which is a good range. If she needs to, she's going to sit down on the floor. Now she's up to 120 degrees. That's the range of motion we need to get to get rid of bicep tendonitis. When you get rid of bicep tendonitis, thank you. You can come up. See how she comes out of it slowly so we don't have a rebound contraction and hurt the shoulders. So we have to be careful coming out of a stretch. When we release bicep tendonitis and get people to 120 degrees, we have had hundreds of people cancel shoulder surgery even though they had a torn labrum or a torn rotator cuff. Bicep tendonitis is the number 1 shoulder injury. The medical world doesn't know that. They think it's torn labrum or torn rotator cuff. When we do this stretch And I discovered this when I was throwing the javelin, the discus, the shot put, and pole vaulting, at least 2 of those every day. I got to the point where my shoulder was so inflamed, so problematic. I had x-rays, MRIs. They say, you have all kinds of stuff torn in there. We're going to have to do surgery, get injections. I said, no way. I kept experimenting. And the way I figured out how to overcome this is, after years of experimentation, I grabbed a cable behind me. And the more that I raised the cable with more weight, the higher I got. I get to 120 and my shoulder stopped hurting. Number 1 shoulder injury, bicep tendonitis. Okay, second range of motion we're going to demonstrate now for the upper body. And when we do these 2 main ones, plus the 4 for the lower body, we're covering the basic building blocks of flexibility in our methodology, and we're teaching you only about 6 of the rules today. Things like you're in the building phase, working your way to the maintenance phase. In the building phase, you're going to do multiple repetitions, sometimes multiple times per day. When you get to the maintenance phase, you can do them once. As easily as Mimi just did sit cross lean to the side, leg over, quad stretch, arms behind and up. She can hit them the first rep. She's good to go. Moving on. The goal here is to be able to do these ranges of motion, our entire routine, in 20 minutes a day. When you conquer the basic building blocks, if you can do those in 20 minutes, then we're going to progress you to some other ranges to work your way to the 15 for the lower body, 9 for the upper body. Second range of motion. I want you to pull your arm across, Mimi, and hook it with your elbow. And I want to see with this hand if you can grab the back of your neck. That tells me if you have too much tightness here. If I go in and press here, I'm going to find some tight spots because the muscle's locked. If it's locked, it's going to be a trigger point. If these are tight, then this is pulling the shoulder blade over. Therefore, the muscles here that attach to the spine and up to the neck, they're going to be tight. So I'm going to go into the corner of her shoulder blade here, press on this. If that's tight and sore, that muscle's locked. So you can see by, okay, good, you can relax for a minute. And so those are the main ranges of motion we do for the lower body and for the upper body. And as you can, as you can achieve these ranges of motion, we progress to more ranges of motion in the chart. Therefore, you'd be ready for video number 2, which has all 24 ranges of motion, which then leads into video number 3, where we have an entire class of 7 people being able to do the entire class 2 minutes on, 1 minute off, 2 minutes on, 1 minute off, multiple iterations of all 24 ranges of motion. So we hope you can get a good understanding and a basic education today, learning the basic building blocks of what we do. This will get you started in the program. As you progress with this, then you're ready to progress to some more additional standards in our ranges of motion as we work our way into a bigger chart. So that should help you start the process. If you have questions, you have issues, we want to have communication with you via email, text, phone calls. We can do one-on-one consultations. Or if you're ready and you progress with these, you can go right to video number 2. And we hope to help you increase your education to eliminate all your pain and injury.